Hey, Dave LeCalio with HeadGames Motorworks. Welcome back. We are going to discuss B58 spring kits. Let's chat. Okay, I'm lying a little bit. We're not actually going to discuss a whole bunch of kits. We are going to compare the factory one to an aftermarket one, and we're going to stop it there. The reason why we're going to compare the stock one is because, man, there's a lot of guys flying, making big power with the stock valve train, and I think that there's power to be had in putting even just a spring kit in the cylinder head. How they're getting away with flying on almost no spring pressure and not actually knowing what the spring pressure is kind of a conundrum, right? So we're going to take a look at it. I'm going to show you the measurements and show you how I measure it. What you need to get this done is calculator, a valve, a retainer, 2 locks, the valve spring, you need each side, and you need the valve seal, and you get yourself a Harbor Freight caliper, and we can't forget the most important tool, a razor blade. We knocked the guides out before the video. Unfortunately, time constraints, and we had to get it done, so the guides got knocked out, but we checked stem height before we did that. Stem height is measured once you put the valve in, and it's from the spring seat to the tip of the valve. This could also be called protrusion height because the valve is protruding into the cylinder head. So you want to measure it from there. We already have those measurements, and I'm just going to include them in our math. Show you guys a little something first. You'll notice that I have 2 springs, 2 valves. The one's in, well, this is the exhaust, this is the intake. And they're actually 2 different springs. So on the exhaust side, they have these green and yellow stripes. The retainer is different because the stem size is different. And the inner diameter of the spring is actually different than the intake side. As you can see the 2 comparison there. They are totally different springs. One is more of a conical and the other one's more of a cylindrical spring. Part of the difference, because it has different retainers, is also because the stem size is different. So they use different locks and everything. So the exhaust valve is a 595 millimeter, and the intake side is 4.95 millimeter. So first thing you want to do is you want to zero your caliper. Now, understand that a caliper is not that, it's not really a precision tool. You're really measuring something you kind of know the answer to, and you just need to get a roundabout. If you really want to know the answer to something, you really need to get a micrometer. So what we do first is we're going to zero the caliper to the razor blade. After that, we stick it on the side of here. What we're doing is we're going to measure from under the retainer to the top of the razor blade. So make sure we got a good number here. So we're at like 230. This is on the exhaust. So we're going to write down the stem height was 1715 and our retainer to tip height was 230. All right, so now we're going to zero this again. Make sure we're good. And we're going to measure the thickness of the locator or the valve seal. So we are at 45. Write that down. 45. All right, let's go to the calculator. We are going to do some calculations. We had the 1.715 stem height or protrusion height. We had a 230 thousandths from the bottom of the retainer to the tip of the valve. And we're going to subtract the valve seal. We're at 1440 would be our spring height. The Buxton spring tester, we're going to put 1440, enter. Now we're going to do everything here at 11 millimeter of lift just to keep it all even. Put the spring in and press the magic button. Boom! We're at 66 pounds on the seat, 144 open, and we are 40 thousandths away from coil bind with a spring rate of 181. Know that the spring is so close to coil bind that if you run an aftermarket camshaft, it's more than 11 millimeters of lift, or if you think you need more spring pressure and you want to shim it, there's simply not enough room. 40 thousandths, or AKA 1 millimeter, just is not enough. And actually, it's about the minimum you're going to want to run for a spring. All right, so we're going to zero it. Again, we are going to zero it against our razor blade, and we're at 218. We already had a stem height, so we're at 1745, and we just had a 218. Now we already know the seal is 45, so we can do our math right now. We're at 1.745 minus 218 minus 045 gives us a 1482 spring height. Make sure you have the blue guy in there, and we have to reset this. So we're going to clear 1.482, enter, press the magic button. 63 pounds in the seat, 140 open, and 42 thousandths away from bind with a spring height of 177. All right, we're going to just go over one of the aftermarket kits available for this, and that's the GSC, and that's only because, well, it's the only one I have here to show you a difference in going to a different spring kit. Now, instead of using two different springs, GSC, and I'm sure every aftermarket kit, is just going to have one spring, and they are going to change the height via the retainer, because so they're going to make the inner diameter the same, so they use the same spring, and then they change the height by moving the lock or moving the retainer accordingly. And if we compare the two, this is the factory one and this is the GSC. It is much beefier. Put in the spring tester. Yes, I already set the height. So we're at 98 pounds on the seat and 210 open. We are 78 thousandths from coil bind with a spring rate of 258. That equals an increase of 32 pounds on the valve seat and 70 pounds open pressure more. And you're also gaining the ability to use a different cam, or if you can add a little bit more lift, because there's actually a little bit more distance to coil bind. All right, that does it for me today. I just wanted to show you something real quick. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment below. I'd love to hear from you. Toodles.